Good morning, good evening, everyone.
Hi, hello.
Hello, hello. Farid is
Hello. Hi,
here,
Farid.
Aurelio is here.
Hello,
Oh,
everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Vladimir. Hi,
hi, Kavita.
Aurelio. Hi, Bindu. Hi, Farid. Good to see
Hi.
everyone. Hi,
Hi
Aurelio. Good
everyone.
to see you.
Hi
Hello.
everyone. Hi Kavita.
Hi, ma'am.
Aurelio, Bindu, Farid. Yeah.
Great. Today we we just continue the same story with what we did the previous day, I guess. And I'm very glad that Aurelio is here, in spite of his busy schedule, as we say usually.
Thank you.
That he is kind of finding time and interest.
Farid roped me in. Farid was roping me in.
All right. Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Yes, and we need you, and we need Farid. We need kind of a new perspective on the dynamics or the resonance. Yeah, we need to create a resonance within the school environment, which will work for educational purpose for of kids and teachers. Everyone has to be in harmony with each other, with the surrounding, with buildings, with nature. So, so we need the highest expertise here, so to say, to create such environment. I remember how in Savitri Bhavan, Shraddhavan was saying, we have to create an environment where people, when they come, they would feel, yeah, they would. But she was more visual person, and this is the problem. Visual people cannot create the environment which would be really kind of acoustically feasible. Except one, that square building where Om Choir was there. Others are very bad in sound, as you remember, all the building in Savitri Bhavan. I worked there for 12 years, so I know the sound very well.
And you know what, nowadays, because I had applied, actually, I wanted to share a course and teach some of the Savitri songs and all of that. And she delegated me to Bharat Nivas. And I said, what? You know what? This Savitri Bhavan was created for it. And it needs a protective space and all of that. But then somehow it didn't fit in. So Auroville is in a huge change
I
in
know.
many different aspects of it. And I was happy to hear when Farid said that you went ahead in the last meetings, and then the school is coming really clear. The design is there. And so the question also of how to bring in that listening awareness, no?
Right. Okay, so please, Bindu, lead away to your project, and we will be just following you and kind of try to fit in wherever needed. We looked at the school. It looks a little bit, in my view, if you want me to start with the overview, very utilitarian in a way. Yeah?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and that's done. So it doesn't have kind of different environments, corners, like because it's expensive to build. If you have many buildings, many walls in between, many, in between spaces, it doesn't have. So it becomes very kind of, here we are, enter here, and exit here. So it's quite, in a way, I'm not to criticize. I'm just saying the first impression when you see such a thing. It's very neat, very clean, very clear mentally. Like 1, 2, 3 of them. You can find easily where things are. But have you seen some of the how people? Of course, it all about costs. I understand. We've been to 1440 University here in U.S. and they invested a lot of money in in San Jose, in that Californian, near to the Pacific Ocean. And it is so amazing because there are so many buildings, so many roads, so many spaces, trees in between, bridges. And it is never, you are never tired. You want to be there because it's always refreshing you, the very architecture.
I think that's a gift, Vladimir, of America universities in comparison to the European universities, which were very utilitarian and academic. The Americans, they because there was more land, and they integrated really nature, and the idea of a campus in America is fascinating. Some of those university campuses are the nicest places.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the States, no, environmentally, design-wise, and all.
Yeah, the smallest university, you will be surprised how beautiful. Lake, this, trees, forest, you name it, everything is there. The smallest, like Clemson University, we went the other day just for our retreat to find the place. Amazing. So how they built everything, yeah. So yes, and so starting from here, what we have in hand, could we think of how to improve acoustically and otherwise in the terms
Can I
of
just
dynamics? Yes.
can I just add something here? So let me give you a little background of this place. This is actually a very restricted area. It's under a lot of statutory compliances, unfortunately. It's also a place where it is a farmland. We have restrictions in terms of how much we can build and what's the kind of material we can build and what is the kind of layout we can do, right? So we are restricted in all these manners in the look and feel of that environment. When we initially thought of the school, we had a completely different idea of how we would do it, what was the kind of organic material we would use. And once we purchased this land, we had no choice but to follow all the statutory compliances. We didn't want to break any rule and regulation. So if you ever come to this land, you will see that everybody's place is made in a symmetry, and we're not allowed to change that symmetry. And that is why we are desperate as educationists and also as passionate people who want to bring in that innovation, that change, to do something which is creative in that area, but without breaking the rules. Therefore, for us, the sensorial aspect made a lot of sense, because within these two structures that we built, how do we play with it aesthetically? We can't change the structure in any way. We can't change the process, but we can bring in a lot of nature, which we've tried through our trees, through our orchard little garden that we are creating there, the vegetable garden that we are creating there, a little water body we are creating over there in one little corner. So all of that we're trying to bring in that limited patch of area. And that is why we thought of, the sensorial aspect would just add value in terms of what we are seeking. That's the back.
You know what, I just because Farid had sent me the plans to take a look at it, and I'm going through it. My first impulse is, actually, I forgot the name. You call it homeschool, no? Home.
Yeah, that's just for our convenience. That is for the convenience of but we have actually renamed the school in the last 1 month. We're calling it the Antapreneur, which is the inner calling. ANTAH, Anta, Prerna.
Yeah. Oh, so, Antapreneur, Pragna.
Prerna. So which is called
Antapreneur. Antapreneur. Entrepreneurship, the word came from this Sanskrit word. This is the original. And it's inner calling.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah. Because I liked also in home, because in the home is the Om is hidden. No? But that's what they said. Now in the inner calling, it's really the listening into it, and then how that inner calling can unfold, how it can be expressed, no? It goes both ways.
So we thought that, the name is so beautiful because at the end of it, when we look at the, the Sanskrit meaning and we look at what the French made out of it, they turned it into an entrepreneur. When they came to India, they realized, somebody said, they said, why are you all looking so happy? And why is it that everybody does their own work? So somebody said, because it's our entrepreneur. So they assumed, and they went back to their country and called it entrepreneur. And our final outcome of the school anyway is to make these children self-reliant and independent and entrepreneurs. And also the meaning of it was inner calling. And so we've been having all these sessions with Vladimir. We just thought that the two connected so beautifully, that when we keep saying that everything is for the divine, everything we need to look within ourselves, everything is connected with the senses, or, so we just thought, let's call it entrepreneur. That was the thought process we had. So that is why.
No, go ahead, Bindu.
No, just go ahead. Yeah.
No, please finish your thought. What I'm going to say may take us a different direction.
Yeah, so we just thought that, this whole, the connection between the sensorial and the entrepreneurship, we were just trying to, find the right connect. And somehow it just happened that Kalpana, was looking at a lot of things and she said, I love this word entrepreneur. Why can't we just use it? And then just resonated with us, because then the byline became the Jnana Kul for entrepreneurs. We were earlier called, yeah. So that is how the conversation moved on. And I think all of us fell in love with the name.
Yeah, name is beautiful, Antah Prerana. Of course, you do it Hindi way, Prerna, but it is Prerana. Yeah, Antah Prerana is, we can say, something which is aspiring from within, the aspiration from within. Yeah. Beautiful.
What's the spelling of the second word, Vladimir? The English
Prerana. It's Prerana.
Prerana. Okay, Prerana. Yeah.
Yeah, so Kalpana has just put it up in the chat box, the spelling and how we are planning to call it. ANTAH with the two Sanskrit.
Visarg.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
And Visarg and then Prerana.
Bindu and team, I wanted to just revisit what you said, Bindu, about the statutory compliances, because Aurelio and I did have opportunity to speak yesterday, and was quite excited in talking about the space and shared the plans with him, but really talked about the things that we touched on last week, especially when we said, hey, the structure's kind of set. What are the types of things we can do after the fact or in retrofit? And we talked about sound gardens. We talked about aspects of using instruments within the building and around the building, how those instruments stand out and on their own, and how they sing in concert. We even talked about times of day for certain instruments, as if, similar to ragas. We also talked about aspects of the facade, and I shared I shared Swaram's primary building as an instrument with the railings, and then we talked about a garden as well. But when hearing some of the limitations that you just mentioned, I think it would be good to understand the exact boundaries, because Aurelio's joining and we'll be talking about, or at least understanding more about what can be done, and we should be able to find a balance.
Yeah, so the infrastructure is already set, right? But we can play around with the lawns, we can play around with the railings, we can play around with the facade, we can play around with anything else, provided we don't go beyond the boundaries of the space provided to us, which means if you ask me, if you tell us that, you have to make another room or that you want to extend this place, we will not be able to do that because we have limitations in that. What can we do in our garden? Nobody's going to come and tell us that, because that's our personal space. Can we do something on our railings? Yes. Can we go inside the building and where we have the Garbhagriha, which is a center place, which is open to sky? Within that area, if we want to do something, anything. So we don't have restrictions on those parameters. And that is why we're so excited after our last conversations, the whole team and all, we kept spending time saying, oh, you know what, the railings, when the child enters, it can play with some sound when it's entering the hall. It can smell something when it's doing something. So as a team, our imagination is always wild, by the way. If you ever get to hear one of our conversations, you'll think with some crazy lot of women here, but we do go wild. And so it excited us. And I don't think there's any restrictions to that. So if in the park you want to keep some rock or, so we were looking at how do we bring in pots of different shapes, because we also have, and I want to bring this up very strongly, is that we have a lot of financial constraints. Because right now, just to bring it to the context, is that I'm personally spending all my life saving to build this whole thing up. So I have to work within a certain budget. I'm not being financed by anybody like my other businesses were financed. So it's a personal calling, which I'm taking. So that's why the constraint of the finances. So we were looking at low cost equipments, all of us were looking at how can we bring in, the Jal Tarang kind of a concept where we can play, the children can play with all of that. So yeah, you've triggered off a lot of thoughts, but I thought you guys are the experts. And why should we spend so much time? We would rather spend time executing it than actually reworking on something that you've already worked on.
Yeah. Well, Aurelio is here, and I really wanted him to be here because we got into aspects of tuning and really creating space sonically. And I think it's best that he he hosts that part of the conversation, especially being that expert of that, and the instruments are produced there anyway. So
while we have defined rooms, but we, as Bindu said, we have a lot of open space, and which we want to utilize for children to get the most out of that space. So rather than just leave it like a garden or a park, if it can function as a way to learn about your own self, to explore, and that is one concept. Second, we have a very beautiful central courtyard into which all the rooms open, which for us is going to be the hub of all learning. So that central courtyard can accommodate some elements. The four corners have been made into very small centers, which we want to use for, again, specific purposes beyond the classroom, for children to sit and focus or to pick up some skill. So those areas are open. And I think even in every classroom, if we can use a corner or a wall or a section of the room. So space in sense of having dedicated rooms is not there, but otherwise it's a very, very open architecture where we want to use every millimeter to give something to the child to learn about their own selves, to go beyond just learning how to write and read and numbers. So I don't think space in that sense is a constraint for us, because it's not a traditional classroom where there's a blackboard and chairs and that's the end of it. That's not how we are visualizing it at all.
So Aurelio, I think.
Yeah. You know what I thought, because I just came from this training and I have this flute here, what I actually wanted to try, because I'm very much kind of like in tune with Vladimir's approach, and what I like in this approach of faculties of consciousness, that it's basically our everyday involvements, those instruments we use in our everyday interactions, but often we don't use them to their capacity and to their inner dimensions, and we don't recognize them actually, that this is the instrumentation how consciousness works in this creative embodiment. And basically, let's say sound, or how we see, even if people say music is the art of time, you know, how it unfolds in time, and it captures us for a certain time. But basic in the Indian tradition, sound and hearing is actually a highest sense relating to space. It relates to what we call akasham, no? And so with sound and the hearing capacity, we probe the inner space, we probed the environment and the outer space, and we probed the built space and the shared space. So what I thought actually, maybe I wanted to almost give it back. I just wanted to, I don't know how that is now with the limited microphone thing. I don't have a studio setup here, but because I had this flute here, I thought, let me play just for 1 minute this flute. And because the team is here, and maybe out of this hearing and feeling what it means to enter into a listening space, that some inspirations can come. And
Yes,
the possibility,
can you put the original sound on in the left corner? If you see it, original sound off or on? I do not know whether
I
you
only
have
see
it.
mute. I see mute and unmute.
Oh, you
wait,
don't have.
no, on original sound off or on?
Yeah, you should make it on and
Okay,
then
now
play.
Okay, so I'm basically inviting you to really make that shift, what it means in shifting into listening awareness, because it's not only an awareness which goes through the ear, it's opening ourselves into receptivity. And in that receptivity, in this full body cellular receptivity, we immediately plug in into intuition. We plug in into the knowledge of our consciousness of the cells of the embodiment. Yeah. So I just play a little bit without saying too much. I play this Native American flute, which is in a very specific scale, just a little bit. So for all of us that we envision, because I looked at the layout of the school, and of course there's so many, as you said, there's so many corners, there's such a creative potential of it there. And what is it that it wants to be filled with? So what shall it provide?
It's very soothing.
It's very
Very nice.
Beautiful.
So from that listening space, which opens our perception, we just heard in our seminar last week from this neuroanatomist that said we have the sensory input into the brain, and actually it goes first, it doesn't go immediately into the cortex, it first goes through the midbrain. It comes from the hearing nerve, basically. It goes into the thalamus. And in the thalamus, basically, there are those primal centers of hearing, and seeing is right next to it. And we know from those original traditions, as soon as we hear deeply, that also seeing, inner seeing is invoked. Yeah, so that's why people see then landscapes or they see colors and all of it before we actually understand the sound. Only because at first the thalamus basically is our immediate reaction to the environment. Also our survival. Is the sound now threatening? Is it inviting? Is it soothing? What is it doing? And so when I looked at the renderings, my first sense is kind of like from you being there on the land, like the building, every shape, every space, every created space has a certain quality, a certain tone, a certain tune. Now, and it looks like, the architect did a good job. It looks like there's a harmony in the whole layout. It looks almost, for me, when you look at these renderings, it looks like a toy space, that children have their own space and you can create that space and campus. I think in one way, one activity would be as much as you can create the form of it, but that you possibly invite the children also to co-create it. Which necessarily might be even anyway happening, because you might not have everything finished. I think that's a great thing when children, you don't serve them the built space. You invite them, what is their listening, what are the materials they're handling, and so that's one impulse I get. Even there could be an impulse of one sound installation or something like this, which stimulates the contact and with music and maybe a tune space, and maybe that would be just the seed of it, of others to evolve in the process with the children. I had one of my first intuitions when I saw the space, and you said something of vegetable gardens. Very precious. I don't know in the climatic region you are, if you can do, in India is such a, let's say, greeneries, greens and herbs, and in Europe usually in the kindergarten we already start with all the cooking herbs, thyme, rosemary, all bay leaf and all those things we can use, no? I think that's important also even what I looked in the vegetation. You don't even need almost many of ornamental things. Let the children co-create it, let them experience it, let them see how things are growing. And then I think for me, then you touch the core of that sound, and that sound which wants to emerge. Technically, one question for me would be, what's the sound environment there? Are you surrounded by, because the place is what? It's a bit more than an acre, 1.5 acre or something?
A little bit more than 1 acre, but less than 1.5. And it is surrounded with absolute greenery. It's absolute farmlands. It has fabulous vegetation, because whatever you grow there just crops up. So any kind of vegetable just crops up, any kind of herb just crops up. In fact, we've made a little patch right now, and we just planted it a month ago, and it's already cropped up. So beautiful. I'm taking all my carrots from there, and I'm taking all my leaves from there. In fact, Kalpana came and robbed most of the leaves. Yes, Kalpana Kapoor, you are quiet. You can at least speak. And she loved it.
Yeah. True. Yeah, it's amazing. Already the boundary wall has a huge number of, I think more than the infrastructure, Bindu's invested a lot on the greenery to begin with. And that was amazing. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you see, because I think if you really want that discovery, for that place for discovery learning, then also that the kids, they have to know where is the sun coming out. So is that a significant things? How is the sun moving over that space? And okay, they might not see the full moon rising in the evening and stuff, but that you can even mark that, for instance, so a little sundial and things like this, because that gives them the orientation. And then from that, if you mark the what we call also windrows or sundial, then they can relate to the whole geography of India and the planet from one spot. Yeah. And see, that's why I'm saying in this a sound, especially as I said, there's the budget limitation there also. It would be, hopefully that you have somebody there in the teaching faculty who has the ears open and who is musically inclined. I mean, you as educators, you're definitely into listening. That's a big part of your profession, no? And so I would really, instead of saying this and this and this we should have, I would like to seed. We can plant a few seeds and then to see what wants to emerge and what wants to be co-created, and how can actually, maybe if you have different batches, how can the elders help to co-create it? So in a few things, even in the playgrounds where you say recycled materials and all of that, no? So I think if the consciousness or the awareness of listening is planted in a bija, I'm saying, like in a bija mantra, if that bija is clear, I see almost that because listening is a process it's a deeper process of learning. It's not about like acquiring knowledge we can measure, no? But for instance, listening, it's a practice. It's an inner practice, and I think so possibly with the deepening of that practice and the capacity in the faculty and in the teachers and in the assistants, that the place will eventually, fully flower into what Farid has this beautiful image of it all being tuned. Because if that place is tuned, then if you work with the inner calling, that inner calling is coming from a cosmic source. There's a deep tuning in it. That's not noise. You might have to penetrate some layers of noise to get to it, but at the core of the inner calling is probably a beautiful psychic melody, no? And so what are the seeds that we can set in motion, that we can plant? We could very simply start, for instance, something, say, a sound which relates to the earth and to the ground. A sound which invokes the movement and catches the movement of the air. And that's fun with children to create wind mobiles. You create things the children shall bring from home and what they have, and you create sculptures, wind sculptures, which touch when the wind is moving, and you can hang anything. You could produce any materials there. So you have a sound for the wind. You have a sound where consciously anywhere on the campus you have the pool, but it also should have like a running water source or a little fountain. So what would be the sound of that water? Yeah. And so through that you open with the sound, basically with the help of sound, you bridge into this elemental awareness. And then that's an interesting thing there. If I'm just saying this Panchamahabhuta, it's like what would generate, or where would be an energy of fire? Would it be some metal sound? What is the school bell? What's the material of the school bell? What's the place of the school bell? Yeah. And eventually, I would also take it possibly from the environment. And I don't know if you considered in the whole setup, where is a safe place for silence? Yeah, or where would there be, is there a retreat place for the children? And children are nowadays amazing, it's like, when a cat is hurt, she just finds her corner and cuddles up somewhere. children have the same capacity. That instinct is there often, no? And especially if they're in a spiritually minded school where they learn that they are responsible for what they bring out and their, how to say, their learning of reactions and all of that. So often I found out that children, if they're made aware of it, they rather retreat into silence and reflect. If that possibility is there. So that's interestingly, paradoxically, an important component. If we really want to tune the school, we also have to see what are the places of listening. Are there safe places where we don't have to listen to blabber and kind of like, and information and all of that? Is there a tree that can be a tree? Is there a tree of listening and things like this? Yeah, those can be even created. You know, you have a tree, what you hang into the tree. You know, traditionally here in South India, you have those temple shrines where the people go and they put their charms on the tree because they want children and they want success and all of that. So I don't know, because you work with all grades. I've been mostly in almost preschool up to 7th grade only because I like that age, because you work with magic. You know, kids are in this magic, mystic openness. You don't need to rationalize everything. I mean, they want to learn and understand everything and want to know the reason for everything, but at the same time, they're still in touch with the inner core. So that's basically, that would be my approach. And because, for instance, if I would approach it, corporately, I said, you know what, I have these fantastic installations. I do you this, I do you this, I do you this. Can you do this? And and then you get your bill for 40 lakh. And so that's how I work in different contexts. But because you are in this adventure of education, I think it's like, how can we offer a space where the adventure never stops? And my last sentence, I'm saying, I brought this very well-known Japanese linguist. He studied in Mysore Institute of Indian Languages, and he was this well-known occultist in Japan. And I brought him to Madhya and the Madhya Gardens. He was a big personality. He was in Japan, one of the foremost. He was a very interesting guy. When he came out of Madhya and he looked around, his first comment was, let's hope that this place is never finished. The building of it, the creation of it is never finished, because as long as it is co-created, it will stay alive, and it can morph and it can change according to the needs of the time. And some batch kind of like will maybe set an interesting impetus, or maybe then alumnus might come back and stuff. So that's a little bit my thing, I think, of free, of this open space. And I think it's inspired from my open listening.
Yeah, sounds great. I think to a great extent, we're absolutely in harmony with our thoughts, your thoughts. A lot of us also discussed all these little elements, of course, with not so much of detail as you put it. The idea was that, we were discussing it last time with Farid and Vladimir also. Our idea was that when children come to us, what kind of music can we give them? Just you played the flute. I was just, in my mind visualizing that at what time of the day can we play such a flute to them, or at what time of the day can we put another kind of music? If we want to do an energetic kind of a thing, what is the kind of music we should put? So to a large extent, we would, Kavita, because she's into music and she sings and she has her own YouTube channel, we had given this task to her to look at the daytime, the afternoon, the evening when the children leave. What is it that they should leave with? What is the kind of music that they go with? But yeah, there are a lot of more than just that. I think a lot of your ideas resonate with us. And these are all doable. And definitely we want children. So if you look at the drawing, the garden has been created, the orchard has been created. Each of that patch we've allocated for each child. And we also thought academically that we would make a little document which said that this land belongs to Kavita, this land belongs to Vladimir, this land belongs to whoever. And every 3 months, you change the land, the papers with each other, because then you learn to respect the other child's land if you know that you're going to get it or not going to get it. And they need to grow it themselves. So when they go home, they go back with the feeling that, oh, today, when tomato came, or, can we bring it on the table that we're going to eat it? You hear the sound. I don't think we went into the sound detail of it, but yeah, it's sort of resonating now, and I can see deeper the children.
But we did talk about the silent zones that we wanted. In fact, not one, but 2, 3 silent zones. One where you could just sit in the nature, just sit, do nothing maybe, but sit. One where there are books lying there under a tree, you pick up, you just want to read on your own in one corner. So we had this concept of having silent zones where not just the children, even us, any of us could just use it to get back our energy, inner energy. So that concept was always there with us. But to link it with sound, saying silence is an important part of sound, that's something that you beautifully connected. But for us, silent zone was always there. Very important for everybody.
One important thing that now I feel we must do, when you said that I hope this building is never complete, that gives me an idea that we should have some stuff which is unfinished. For example, take the example of Jal Tarang. So maybe you can have just 3 pots with, the appropriate volume of water in it. And maybe children can figure out what should be the next, complete the sequence, then they can place 2 more, 3 more, and then they can understand the scale of the sound, how it varies with the next one. Maybe they can even experiment with different materials and see what kind of sound appears. So, or maybe create a string instrument with maybe just 1 string, and they can add another and see how can they operate with it. So our unfinished stuff will really help them, do it. We should do that. So that means whatever we create is working, but it has scope for much more with the children can add to it. So some things of that sort, some items of that sort.
I think
Even
this is
even visuals also of that sort. If it should be left unfinished, let the children imagine and complete it. For every sense, we could think of ideas.
It could be open to the creativity, but unfinished, it is a very symbolic thing in a way. I mean, and I think this Japanese master was saying also symbolically in a way. It's that it would have enough space and scope for interaction and bringing new energy in. And instead of becoming like somebody's project put into ferrocement and that's it forever. That's what he meant. He meant more open to the forces of creativity. And I think female energy is doing it all the time to any environment. You can see how ladies are managing their houses. They are always rebuilding something, changing furniture, changing the positioning. They're constantly refreshing the position. Man is more like static. He wants to have everything in place forever. But so I'm not afraid of you being kind of constantly redoing, doing, changing, shifting, and together with children, recreating space every day. But the most interesting message what I heard from Aurelio was this, inner resonance, inner harmony, which is to be created, captured, as it were, and cared for by everyone. It has to be perceived in this environment, and everybody who perceives it has to nourish it, keep it, so to say, not disturb it. That, do you remember, Aurelio, there was Miramukhi school, with these French.
Yeah.
My daughter was there for many years, from her when she was 3 till she was 14. And when they closed the school because these Frenchies were not ready to continue, Auroville was very hostile against them. Auroville is a very strange place, very difficult to live, especially when you are creative. And so they left. She was crying. She was already 13, and she was crying that she has no place to go, such as that school. That shows how deeply they moved her, touched her. And when you come to that school, everything was there in a way in harmony, and especially sound. What was striking, the sound was they were never shouting as usually people shout when they are unconscious. It was like taking care of others' perception, so to say. It was strangely conscious space. So this, to build this coherent, because hearing is this coherence, comprehending coherence. So to say, everybody understands everybody through that oneness or harmony is something fundamental and most essential. Even more essential than visuals, I think. Because it pervades, it penetrates deeply into your being, in your feelings. It is in your feelings rather than in your seeing something beautiful. And they paid attention also to all the colors. They never allowed, it was really, people were even against them, because they never used black colors. They used pink, blue, all kind of colors, but black was not there. Which is weird in a way. Some people said that they are depriving kids from, knowing the reality and so on. But they created an environment. They were creative. They had their zoo with ducklings, with donkey, and they took care of those animals. It was really a beautiful environment. I imagine something like this for your school. And they were 24/7. These are not the teachers who are coming to work. 24/7. That means no space for, there is no private life of the teacher. It was all there, everything, all the minutest details, response to everything, immediate, the most concerns. It was very dedicated team. And it may work out of that kind, that kids would love to come back to that school. If you create that, then you have it.
And that's why I'm saying, when Farid mentioned to me that, how to say, that need for tuning, and then where to start the tuning, which is basically, I think the tuning is already happening through the faculty, through you, the core group of you, and that's basically, how to say, what you bring together. There is already that sound is there, that resonance is there between the three of you. And how can your this inner beautiful tuning which you have, how can that bring everybody into that resonance? No, because you, as you said, Bindu, you worked for so many years in all different kinds of school, and this is your home ground in one way. You also investing all, how to say, all your faculties and your savings into it. So it's basically possibly also, I think, that yearning in one way, that you can be there in your authentic self and basically bring everybody into this authenticity. That we don't have to run around with masks and play all those roles we have to play, and which you see so often from the parents, when they come from their positionings and their jobs and their backgrounds and all of that. How can we create this authenticity? And I think in one way I'm seeing something like that's why my question was jokingly, what's the sound of of the school bell? Do you need a bell because it's timing and all of that eating and playtime and all of that stuff, So what would be that sound? What's the quality of that sound? And I see symbolically we have this spinner, which is one of my favorite instruments. It's like this rotating array of tubular bells, and through the spinning movement, it creates this Doppler effect so that it also has pulsations in the air and in space. And so I just saw this, I thought it just needs, it's almost like the first thing is like, what's the tuning fork of the whole between you in the core team? What's the quality, the texture of that resonance which you share together, and how can that texture, quality of inner sound be brought into a manifestation of an actual sound on the campus? And if that seed sound is in relationship to your inner resonance, then already there's a manifestation, audible manifestation of your resonance. And that can be for, just this afternoon I was in one of our main guest houses, which they have this amazing banyan tree in the middle, center guest house. And they were longing for, since 2 years they asked me, and now finally I said, no, I'm coming. They wanted to have a big wind chime there. We make those oversized wind chimes larger than our body. And then I said, but it's important what is the tuning you want? I prefer usually to work on customized things. What's the quality you're looking mostly for? That you can sustain your energy, that you can sustain the teaching, that you're not burning out. In the guest house I said that you sustain this constant change of transitory population and stuff. And then one of the Italian managers, out of her guts, she just said, earth, I need earth. And then I said, well, yeah, there's this beautiful tuning and maybe this. So I'm seeing, I think if we, as I said, if we have those few conscious listening spaces as a seed, you have the silence already there, as Alka said, and then you have those few signifying spaces outside with different installations. And then, as you also said, I don't know the whole classroom setup and stuff like this, but that in the creative arts room and in some rooms that you have different awareness bells. We make those very simple single resonators, which are used in the corporate world as attention and awareness bells. When things are getting too heated, anybody in the room can beat that bell, and everybody has to basically listen till the resonance of that bell is out. And that bell resonates almost 45 seconds. So
Glad we never had it in my office. It would have been resonating all the time.
Bindu, we can still get it and start using it. Don't worry. Now that we've got the idea, it's there now.
Yeah. And so you know what, like, I resist that, for instance, or for me the most important, I have this old little, I wrote a note on sound in primary schools, because I said instruments are not toys. I differentiate in that one, because when Vladimir speaks about that energy which that French team created in that school campus, they moved away 15 years ago. I tell you, part of this atmosphere is still there. It's called Deepanam, that school now. But what I'm saying is, when children know, they can, in the Montessori method, they can take this box and do whatever they want with it if they put it back again, And the thing is, I always said, for instance, instruments, I learned that in India actually, instruments usually in the master's home, in the teacher's home, they are part of the puja room, of the altar room. They are there to be respected. You're not stepping over them. You're not throwing them after somebody and all of that. With building blocks that can happen, yeah, but with instruments, it's almost like a sacrilege. because in the instruments there is a pranic quality. Why do instruments sounds? What's the vibrational capacity of an instrument? There is a certain pranic life quality. And if children, for instance, if they're made aware of that, that so the instruments are not part of the toy box, or if you said in every room there could be something, hey, this bell is not rung just for fun, it's rung when the hour is full. It's the same like the emergency bells somewhere, nobody is allowed to pull them. They're only pulled when fire is happening. If that alone, this relationship, and in my preschool work, it was so beautiful because children, when I worked with instruments, they treated them as, they also made mandalas with instruments, they made stories with instruments, but they treated them as something alive. So that means now I'm moving in from the outer environment of the place of sound in an inner environment. Yeah, so I don't know, that's maybe, I mean, I would call, for me that was the beauty of coming to India, that there's this sacredness around sound, and what else is basically invoking sacredness in children nowadays? No, we are so profane, our culture is so profane. What still creates this awe? Nature does. If a child plants a seed and sees the sproutling coming up after a few days, just look at the face of the child, and the child is in front of the miracle of life. No, and when it sees, and then it grows, and then there's a flower coming, and that flower makes a seed and a fruit and all of that. That's where awe is there. Can we also imbibe that awe in, in relationship with objects? And I said that's where, for instance, musical instruments have a very specific role.
Very nice. I like the word use of sacredness in sound. It's beautiful. Yeah, it resonates. I think that's what we need to do with our children. And I think that Antaprana, when we say the inner calling, just sort of resonates even more to me now. Yeah, so Aurelio, while you were telling us all these beautiful things, I had asked the same question because my mind works in a very cognitive manner, unfortunately. Everything is process driven, everything is systematized, everything is organized somewhere in my mind. I think I get my peace knowing that things have a place and they're all there. So the question I'd asked Farid and Vladimir was, is there any process document or something like that which you can share with us, or that, because right now we are in this phase of doing up the school. I mean, the architecture is the finishing is going on. Right now we're putting up the tiles, the plastering is going on. So another 2-3 months, we would have finished with the school building. Now then we will move into the garden, we will move into the outer space. Is there something that we should do now, which later will become difficult for us to do? Because for us to again break something, or maybe not plant a tree at a certain spot. That's why I sent all these plans that you can have a look.
Yeah, no, I think it's in the right timing. There's no panic or concern, because, you're not creating, as you said, a specific studio space which might have its requirement and stuff like this. I think from just for the school, I think things should be okay. Sometimes when, for instance, you have in that central plaza, and you say, let's say we would put one installation there, if you have a stone cladding, we just might have to remove one stone so that we can fasten that thing into the ground or drill through that stone and stuff. So it's minor interferences. We have one thing which children like a lot, where we have this, remember, I don't know what you did in India, that you took a what was it, an old can, and you had that string and you could speak over the distance. We have some,
Telephone.
yeah,
Telephone.
so telephone, no? We have something like this, which we, in some places, we put underground. We put underground this connecting, it's almost water installation pipes, and they have different outlets. And then children can basically speak into those pipes. And if there's another child, usually it's a 2 and 2, and that can be over big distances. You know, it can be even on the edge of the whole sports ground or something like this. And it could be, I haven't tried, we spoke about it 2 days ago with our team, because we saw a place where they had 4 or 5 outlets. So I don't know, then when the voices mix and stuff, I would have to make an experiment. So that's the only thing, for instance, where we usually face some limitations when things are already structured, and a university campus, they have in the plastered stones and stuff. But because that would need then a ditch, no, it needs a little bit of a ditch and to make this connection. That's the only thing so far where we had more, how to say, serious concerns on while construction is going on. Or the only thing which we had prepared, we worked in this museum in Bangalore, and we included that before the garden was, how to say, cladded, in stone cladding and stuff. That's the only thing process-wise. I think sound in one way, as it is related to the finer, subtler element that can come in later. You don't, first you build with earth and bring in the structural things. Sound in that way can be added, yeah. But the important thing, what you, how to say, what you should do, and if you want to honor that, how to say, that faculty of hearing, is that you, in the core team, that you explore it a little bit together. And what does it mean? What is deep listening meaning? What is, and that can be so simple. What can you, for instance, before you have your meetings, how would that be if you hum a minute together? Or before you run off from the meeting, what does that do to the quality of your shared space, of your interaction, when you tone together? Yeah. So I'm teasing you because I said, okay, there's this outer infrastructure, but if you're really looking for the manifestation of that quality, then how can you create it in the core so that out of the core it resonates?
By the way, what you said about the humming is a very powerful tool to come together and to respect each other's vibration and space, and feel that there's pervasiveness of the being, you know, and then it creates really harmony, and it can sustain for quite some time after humming. People respect each other differently. Yeah, even I believe kids also would feel this deeper sense.
Yeah. So that means that there you come then, what Vladimir says, what are the rituals or ceremonies in the school? You know, without not wanting to be religious, what are those universal ritual in the sense of ritam? What are the right things to do to create those tunings? And Bindu, if you want, or maybe Kavita, because she's into music, if you want to have the scientific background of humming and all of that, Farid knows also Jonathan Goldman. He's one of the foremost sound practitioners and kind of Western yogis in the field. He produced like, I don't know, 30 productions on chakra sound since the 70s and 80s. He's in his late 70s now. And I think the gift of his transmission of his life's work, he wrote this book together with his wife, bringing in lots of scientific data and the most simplest exercises, and it's called the humming effect. And
Has he done this on children?
That's a question. No, he's very famous. He's training lots of teachers and
What's
lots
his
of
name? Sorry, what was his name?
the Jonathan
Humming effect.
Goldman. And why I'm so thrilled about it, because I know him personally, and he's this Jewish brain intellectual, you know what, just a giant mind, being since 40 years in that field, and that he has the courage and says, He says it actually. He said, you know what, the fruit of my 45 years of study is actually, it's like, let's learn humming together as humanity. And because he said it's so simple, it's so effective, what Vladimir says, it has also those deeper dimensions, and it's accessible for everybody. Yeah? And
Yes.
so he brings in scientific, medical aspects of it, and I love it because it's a thing which every human being, independent of background, of ethics, of culture, it's accessible for all of us because we all know how to groan and weep and laugh, no? So,
Yes.
and that's why for me, for instance, in my work with hearing or voice, it's all also all this primal expression comes in. What does it mean? Sighing. Sighing is one of the most essential exercises for opera singers. Ah,
Oh,
ah. Can we sigh together? You know, when the kids come or when the teachers come, you come in together into a heavy loaded teachers meeting, you know, and that's how to say it. That's in the States, in that way, they were a bit ahead of the rest, or more liberal and more adventurous and discovery orientated. And that work is happening since 40 years in the States. Toning practice, I remember when that came in, when still the whole surroundings were so conservative. And India, you can say India is built on the whole culture is built on Shruti, on the
Shruti.
heard knowledge, on the scriptures which are not composed and not kind of like written down through mental processes. They were heard, those shrutis, those stories, those mantras. So it's India is almost, we say, one of the only 2-3 cultures in the world which has the deepest secret of sound. Yeah.
Yes.
So in that way, if you, how to say, if that's integrated in a school curriculum, and if and you can say, if you from the inner calling, the children shall also become entrepreneurs, self-sufficient and creative and all of that. And I think possibly even right now in Auroville also we are almost breaking down into a civil war because there's no capacity of listening, of deep listening and response able listening. We're listening to other, and but I also take the responsibility that I respond to that what I heard.
Before we leave Jonathan Goldman, I think that's an important one. That book is very interesting and could be, you know, kind of required reading for the instructors there. But even better, I find, is the audio version of the book because he has exercises at the back of it. So you actually, yeah, so you can hear it, you can go along with it, and I think it's a, you know, that a sense of humming together is quite an amazing tool. It takes me back to part of the conversation when we were talking about you know, the co-creation and what people can do, and you talked about the garden and that responsibility or that respect for someone else's because you know it might be coming to you, and that just gave me this thought that you know, there's this sort of a constant evolution through creative contribution that's leading to greater ownership. But at the same time, it has a diminished sense of attachment, which is, you know, you have kind of both sides of the coin, which is, it's the foundation for wonderful life lessons, I think, in the way you guys were talking about it. And then, one other aspect, and we were talking about co-creation, we're talking about humming, and we talked about how you can't do a lot to change the space, but I'm wondering, is there a humming cave? And that could be a hallway, or that could be a room that we, you know, we collectively could think about creating for people to hum together, or even a transitionary space when you're going from one area to another. It's not just a dead and dull space. It is something that comes to life with the voice of children or the voice of whoever goes through. But it's also a place that you could just stop. It's not just I'm running from here to there. I can take a pause and actually hear myself, hear us, hear you, put my voice out and have it come back to me with a beautiful resonance. And then that in itself is a bit of tuning, self-tuning, group tuning, individual tuning, or when someone is in need, I'm helping tune someone else as we cross I don't want to be too large in saying the physical paradigm from one area to another area within the campus, but these are thoughts. These are thoughts for us to co-create around.
Beautiful, Faris.
Different ragas for the day. In the morning, have Bhairav, and then Bhairavi, and then in the evening, switch on to Yaman and create tunes.
Yes, that's tunes, but I think also the hummingness. If we can look at what is the kind of humming that actually brings in what kind of emotions in our little children, that itself will be so amazing, because and we can document this. We can look at it and say, this is the way the child behaves. Does it help in a kind of a therapy? Does it help the child to relax? Does the child get hyper? So there are so many variations to that hummingness that we can look at. And of course, use the ragas later to see the effect of that too.
Well, what's unique about it? Oh, sorry.
No,
I just love the idea of the bells, Aurelio's bells.
Yeah.
I think we need that. We really, because the school bell is so harsh and so threatening in some ways.
Yeah.
And if we can have this kind of bells as reminders, bells as attention, bells to call, diffuse energy sometimes. I think we need to think about the different kinds of sounds that
awareness.
We want. Yeah, it's beautiful.
What do you think if the bell would be like inviting or something? It is with its beautiful kind of tapestry of sounds, like creating the whole kind of rich, harmonious, pleasant and attractive sound. Do you want to go to that bell rather than to run away from it?
It should dawn gradually, unlike the harsh, suddenly the way the bells function, they suddenly very loudly they begin and there's a very harsh sound for some time and it stops. Something which starts gently and
let the children make their own sound, record it and put it up as a bell.
And maybe children's own music later can become bells.
Every day they would be very keen to listen whether their music is coming as the bell or not.
And we had discussed rituals and rites for everything in one of our early discussions with Bindu. I think that would happen later. Right from when they come, what should they do? When they are leaving, what should we all do together? When they sit down to eat, what should we all do together? How do we get up from the table after eating? How do we begin our work? Because as you said, sacredness is very much a part of our ethos. And it's not so much about religion. It's about the way of doing things in a certain way. So rituals will be a part of our school to make the day into different parts and to kind of start and end different activities.
Thank the body, thank the food they eat, literally look at it as something sacred. So, if they study also to if I call it study, but even if they play, the concept of how do you make play so beautiful and harmonious to their feeling good. I think we ignore all these aspects in schools.
I remember my grandparents used to, before they start writing, that Om would have to be written on top of the page. So those rituals, or how to put your thali before eating, how to get up from the table and how to. So all those rituals were there in the house. We just stopped them somewhere.
Conscious of when you're eating, what are the sounds that you make? I think that is something we just don't teach our children. Well,
no, so that you can have, if you have like once a week or every new moon and stuff like this, you have a silent eating day. You can even have a silent half day once a month and stuff like this, you know. And I thought also that's a nice idea of what you said, the differences. Maybe children can contribute the bell, or for instance, what works very much now, also in I think I mentioned it once, when you give children the responsibility, how serious to take it. So then you have somebody who is taking care for the bell for a week, and then that person has to teach the next person to do it. You know how serious children would be with those scores and the timekeeping and all of that. I liked it also from Farid, what he said, that almost like a corridor, you have some transitional zones. And usually in schools also, they can be very loud and stuff like this. But for instance, that you have one corridor, which is known for the silent or for the humming corridor. And whatever people, when they move there, everybody can do their sounds and things. So I think what I like now, because I'm saying we're like children ourselves, we're in this discovery process, you know, of having the fun of creating it. And what I think one thing which is important for me, why I like this thing of humming, for instance, because what are we doing in this age where all the religions, they're either in Europe, the churches are empty. In other parts of the world, the people are killing each other because they're of different denominations. So what is when those religions fall apart, and maybe we come at the end of the age of religions? In the West, we say the age of Aquarius is a spiritual age. It's a truth within. It's following that calling from within. And what are there, what holds us together in the ceremony? What are the universals? And humming is so universal. In silence, we are also universal. Yeah. In the use of our hands, in the basic emotions. I work with many people internationally on the Navarasas, you know, from theater, the 9 emotions. We all share them as humanity. If we are Muslim or Hindu or Christian, we all know what it means to be sad. Yeah, we all know what it means to, how to say, to be moved by something and care for something, or to be in awe. Yeah. So I think for me in this movement of new education, that's a little bit also where we have, what are the universals of this human species? Yeah, because also with the communication age and the traveling, those kids can be anywhere in the world. And still, how to say, every culture has this, I'm not saying that we bring them up in this neutral space. We have this cultural specifics, that's beautiful diversity of our expressions. But I think we no harm if we emphasize on that what unifies us in the human species, no?
We need that more in today's world.
Yeah.
And we need to teach our children this. It has to begin from the school. It cannot happen later.
And you know, children are actually the first ones. I remember a project, a school project, a friend of mine was involved in Ireland. I don't know if you remember how heavy 30 years ago those fights were between the Protestants and the Catholics, and how traumatized they were in a civil war for 30 years or 40 years. And the kids, they grew up always with suicide attacks and bomb attacks and all of that. And when they brought this reconciliation process into the schools, the children brought it back into the parents' houses. The children wanted it. The children got it because they were not yet too separated, and they were not dogmatic, you know, and they basically, they steered that reconciliation process and under skillful facilitation and stuff. And the kids, when we had programs in Arville, bringing together, I remember this UNESCO Youth Conference, and then there were Indians and Pakistani youth, and you know, it was very tense at the beginning and all of that. And then when we had them out tree planting for 3 days, you should have seen how those youth when they left each other. There was just so much warmth and embrace and compassion and shared stuff. It's so in the doing. Okay, so that's for me what I'm talking about global communication now, in the context of humanity. And on the inner level, I think that the approach from Vladimir through the faculties of consciousness, this is where we are united. We're all hearing, we're all seeing, no? We all have thinking capacity and speaking expressive capacity. And that's why I think it's so essential and revolutionary to go back to the basics of a human embodiment. And this fun is with hearing is it's playful. Music, we don't work. I mean, we have to work on instrument skills and all of that, but basically music invites us to play, to be playful, no?
Yeah.
I was thinking before I went also to Farid to finish his thought, because he was interrupted in between. I'm still thinking what he wanted to add to the picture. But before Farid, you go there, I will just say my thought, because I will lose it. And what comes to my mind when I hear all this is this holding space, holding. It's like if we learn to hold the space, to respect a rhythm or the unfolding, what is happening already harmoniously in the environment, you enter that sacred space in a way that adds to its dimensions, or even changes the context, but in a way which is harmonious and productive and creative, rather than abruptive and destructive and selfish. So this it kind of eliminates selfishness. It introduces this humming about which Aurelio was talking. We had this in Auroville with him, actually, that for the first time I felt that human unity is possible when you sit in the circle with closed eyes and you hum for a long time, yeah? Slowly you grow into that music. Then you don't hear your voice anymore. You hear it in the one voice of this group. You hear that something is happening there harmoniously, and that group becomes one. You open your eyes and you can feel so close to other people. You can't express on what level you feel it close. It's something magical in a way. And that's why hearkening, according to Gebser, was one of the first, hearing was one of the first magical functions of consciousness, which we looked into already. In the animal kingdom, they are all listening to the bigger body, how they relate with it, what is happening, how it influences them. That respect for that body is something we have to learn. It has to become a foundation of this environment. That's what I wanted to say. And now, Farid, please, sorry that.
No, actually, Vladimir, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the thought was or when I stopped, but since then I've had other thoughts. I think I've just been taking nuggets of what we're all saying and assembling them. I think perhaps it was going to build on what Kavita was saying, and when she was talking about, perhaps certain ragas or certain sounds like that during the day. And I think the beauty of that is that yes, it can be a semi-programmed space in that way, but also I think there's a certain beauty in just letting it or allowing it not to be in any way. But I think the combination of those two things is that perhaps in this humming space or the humming tower, that certain times during the day you're playing a single note, an elongated note with a wonderful resonance, with perhaps with with the natural overtones that come with that note. And as someone walks, they just hum. That is, I mean, that's almost setting the tone for that transition. And through single tones or a very simple chord, um, then you do perhaps evoke certain emotions at different parts of the day or whatever it may be. If it's towards the end of the day, it's something slightly uplifting. People are getting tired. If people are coming in, right after some sort of recess and they're quite loud, then it's something a bit aramse, just calming before they go inside, or whatever it may be. But yeah, I don't remember exactly what I was going to say, Vladimir, but it was just a culmination of thoughts I was having around that the last time I spoke, which was in this space.
What it comes to my mind when you say one can in this environment of development of faculties have a particular time to express oneself in melodies, in singing, rather than in speech, in a particular way. It would be very funny. Kids most probably, adults would love it. I would love it. Instead of talking, you have to sing, or instead of speaking in normal language, you have to speak in poetry only. But this is maybe for adult kids. Poetic expression, singing expression. So one can have, for example, 15 minutes of singing expressions only. So that would be
Yes.
just something comes. It's experiential, of course. It has nothing to do with, we do not know the results, but it might be a lot of fun, which would create that oneness or, that sense of pervasiveness of sound.
It's going to be a lot of creativity too, because they'll be composing that way, because they'll have to, every sentence will require a certain way that it has to be said or sung. So slowly, that seed of being a composer, will start germinating. So that's one. And another thing that I was just thinking when I was talking about ragas, there are bij mantras for every chakra. Lam, hum, yum. So those could be the humming sounds as well. So
Yeah, that's. I think that's a
chakra.
wonderful point. I think also even Aurelio, the Swaram pulse tubes are all have a certain tuning and frequency and are assigned, at least in the card that's included in the pulse tube, they are assigned to a certain chakra. That's just a build off of what you were saying, Javika. And then the elements. What does a resonating space sound like when water is coming, and it's just that sound, or when air is blowing, or when any of these things are coming, then then there is that is another way of bringing the elements in and letting that elongating that as you transition. I think those are just all the fragments of what I may have been trying to say, Vladimir.
I wanted to ask, because I see on the plan you have a residential block there, also like a hostel. So will there be actually staff and children also be there in residence?
Yes, the plan is to keep a few children, especially the underprivileged children who are part of the school, to keep them there, and also to keep faculties there. Especially visiting faculty, we've kept places upstairs for them to come and spend a week or 10 days, whoever wants to come and teach them something unique, to also do that.
Yeah, you know what, because I was just actually in a, how to say that, very important, if people stay there, of course you don't want to be too restrictive and stuff like this, but that it's very important, usually the residents who are staying there, they're really co-creating strongly and determining the atmosphere of the space also. I'm just saying, I was in this resort retreat island in Maldives where we worked on a larger project, and I was impressed actually, because it's like top luxury, and people nowadays, they cannot even survive an hour without their cell phones, no? But because it was so focused on therapies, they had like 16 therapists there on this tiny little island, and therapy rooms and all of that. So that they, for instance, there was no Wi-Fi access in the public spaces. In the restaurant and in those lounge spaces, there was no Wi-Fi access. I said, how courageous that they would do it. You know, the people in their rooms, they could have whatever they had. And so I'm just saying, because when I see that hostel block there, I'm saying those people who will stay in that one, they will very much co-create and have to be taken into responsibility and awareness of because creating the atmosphere of it. It's, I mean, I think all our discussions and suggestions, they all dance around awareness. No, in one way, all those means of humming and eating and what you said and the music, it's all about how can we become more aware of the passing moments and maybe catch the delight of those moments, yeah? And we suffer as humanity because we are not aware. We're not aware of ourselves, we're not aware of each other. Much of it, we're not aware of the issues which are running, or we are cognitively aware, but we're not sensory listening, deeply participating in that awareness. I think that's what the faculty of hearing brings. I have, in thinking, I can think about it and I can put it out of my mind. If I'm deeply listening, I'm so involved, I'm so coming into that experience of it that I'm not separated anymore. Yeah. And so I'm saying I see that partly, how to say, from our conversations is, how can we create a space? And often we make a mistake that we equate awareness with seriousness. Yeah, it's not true. It can be so playful. The best entry into awareness is actually playfulness. In games, we become aware of our positionings and of our patterns and all of that. No. So and sound is is one of the good contributors towards awareness through bells and attention calls and different qualities of sounds. Even in Zen monasteries in Japan, which are all built around awareness training centers, you could say, sound and beauty is the most important factors. You know, they have these springs and wells where they include clapping bamboo so that the monk they don't fall asleep and stuff like this. So when I look through the whole layout of stuff, I mean the fruit trees and stuff like this, what it has, it's how can we create a space where it's not only sane and caretaking, but where we find the joyful of that awareness. That's my note on people staying there on the campus. Because it could be even, you know how to say, if the teaching faculties, you come in and you leave and stuff, but those people who stay there, they create the atmosphere of it. So it's an important consideration.
For the first 2 years, I don't think we will have too many, children staying there, because I will need legal compliances to do all of that, which will take me a few years. So, but first we want to build up the school, the environment, and then maybe later look at how children can stay there. So we're preparing for it right now, but it's not something that is, we'll use that space right now for children to do other activities and things like that.
Yeah.
But we need to create the sound for it. In fact, when Farid was talking of the space of, maybe have a humming cave or something like that, my mind was going to one of the rooms in the house to say that, can we give it that look and feel and, make the children go humming there. And this is just a thought that came to my mind for a fleeting second. Yeah. When can we begin the school and when can we do all of this? This is what I'm actually.
What would be the next step to this? Now I think since the building is now ready and the outfitting would start, what would be how do we move forward on this?
I have one question. How you you're within Delhi? Is it the school is in Delhi or it's outside of Delhi somewhere?
So it's in Noida. I don't know if you've heard of
Yeah,
Noida.
yeah, I know Noida.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So this is in the
project in
heart of
Greater
Noida.
Noida. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is in the heart of Noida. It's towards Greater Noida. And these are all. If you actually, I'll show you the environment. If I can just share a screen, maybe give you a sense of this field. I will need
Go ahead.
access. Yeah. So let me see if I can share. Share this. Can you see this?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Let me play this and show you. When we first took this land, this is how it
This is the
looked.
plot of land, and you can see Ambika and Anga trying to measure it while you have the professionals at the back trying to get the measurement. This is the land on which we plan to build the homeschool.
Sunset, no?
Yes. That's the reason
It's
I
beautiful.
remembered.
As you can see, we have some people who've built their little farmhouses nearby. We're hoping we'll have good neighbors here. It's lush and green. There's work of the road going on here to make it concrete. Tractors are here. And now you have, let's see how far they've progressed.
Yeah. So this is when we bought the land, when we sort of took it on. You'd be absolutely amazed to see how it looks right now. There's not a single patch which has not been made into farmhouses. But the reason I wanted to show you that this is in the middle of Noida, which is it's not an isolated place. It's just 10 minutes from my residential place, which is a busy, bustling colony. And just 10 minutes from my house is this area. It's serene, it's quiet, it has a beautiful sunrise, sunset, you can hear the birds, you can feel, and the energy here is amazing. I mean, when you go there, it just uplifts your energy for some reason. In fact, I had taken somebody today, and the first thing, the reaction was, oh my God, I feel so nice, and the energy is so good. So I think that's what I want to really bring out there. I don't want to add too many things there, but just let play with nature. I need the rooms. I need the infrastructure to be like, you saw how the other houses are there. We have to make it exactly like that. There is no way. We can't change the color of the exterior. We can't change the roof. But the inside we can play with. And that's what excites me. You know, we can play with the garden. We can play with the interiors as much as we want, and I want that energy to be there. So I think that excites me every time I go there, and every time I sit with Vladimir's class and I see, oh God, this FOC is so exciting. How do we bring it to our children? Because this is something so close to what I really want to do. And for reason for giving up my hectic corporate life, living it for 33 years, killing myself, from 6 in the morning to like 12 in the night, trying to achieve something, I feel I've lost sensibilities in it. So how do we bring that inner soul for the children in our academy? So that's what drives me. That is why FOC for me is so important, sensorial. How do we enhance every aspect when the child comes there? So how do we, so the idea of, now what if we get these little kids and we can have little ducks and we can have a little puppy and we can have some little kittens and the whole concept of letting them enjoy life in that open space and find their own voice and find their own sound is what's exciting me. So yeah, can we think of rooms with different what?
I was I'm also thinking right now to give an example of what is hearing, what is kind of caring for space is actually in this what we did today is something which is created of that kind. Yeah? And because we focused on hearing, and more we focus on hearing, on the sound, on vibration, of pervasiveness, of respect of sound, you create an harmonious, pleasant environment from which you don't want to get out. And the moment you bring some mental or there's some visual, or some this kind of what is to be, how it should be shaped, the moment you do this, you kind of bring another faculty, yeah? Activate another faculty. um, and so the point is here, what I try to make is we have to learn how to really create that space as teachers and hold it. Yeah? If we can do that, the children can dive into it, kind of plunge into it and stay in it and enjoy it, and it will flow, and their kind of learning will flow within this space. If we create a divisive environment, dividing it into pieces and actions and shapes and forms, and insist on that without this background, without this foundation, then we would have much more challenging environment.
Yeah, I agree with you, Vlad. And my only thing is that, parents in India, how do you change their mindset? Because by the time the child is 6 months old, they want the child to learn alphabets. The I've seen moms who are babies, instead of really just cooing with them or having a chat with them or just loving them, just singing about alphabets and numbers so that the child, when it opens its mouth, the first thing it can say is, you know, academic stuff. So it really bothers me, but how do you change mindsets? So if I tell everybody, oh, we're having this school which is all about sensorial experience, I'm going to get jacked. Though I would love to do just that, and the endeavor is to do just that. So yeah, we will take that risk and let's see where we go.
Well, what I wanted to say is actually it's one layer, it's the foundation. And I don't mean that there will be no distinguishing discrimination of the mind and sight. I mean, it will lay on this, on the top.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
understand.
integral
Yeah.
paradigm. So it
Yeah.
will not contradict, it actually will support. The intelligence will grow, the capacity to distinguish will grow and understand what is required.
That'll be
It is
very good for the children. I was only talking it from a mother's and father's
Oh.
perspective, because I understand for the children, it's just the perfect environment. I mean, why would the child not thrive in it? Would love it if you did something like that.
But Bindu, as you said when you brought your visitor there, that's a thing of I think of the faculty of hearing. It connects with an inner knowing, with an inner sense, and the parents, if they have an exposure to that place, and if they, as you said, whomever you bring there, the people feel it and sense it. If you create that atmosphere, it will be palpable. And that's why I said nowadays we are so programmed, we feel those things either in a 5-star foyer or something, or we feel it in temples because we are programmed to it.
Yeah.
Can we not feel that sacred atmosphere in an educational environment? And I have, because I think Alka said, what's the next step and how we can go about this? I have possibly one homework. I know Kavita is familiar with the ragas. Experiment a little bit, because what I'm saying, I can give you a seed sound or an installation, a central thing, out of which everything else is involved. And then my question is, what's the tuning of this one? I wouldn't like to take any tuning which I have in my mind. I would like to ask Kavita, what's the raga you sharing, the three of you, or whoever is there in the core team? What's a tune where you all feel like, I mean, for instance, if I would work with you directly together, we would go into those exercises and say, and would say, what's your prime frequency? What's your relationship? What's every interval is a relationship. So I would ask Kavita, how does if she has that background, what's the tuning of the core group? Is it more like a Bairaf, a morning thing, or are you more celebrative in a midday sarang together or something? And that's a tuning which you all feel like, hey, this is expressed, this really expresses our aspirations. This tune, or even if you relate it to a film song or a popular song which was written in that raga, there are umpties lists of film songs and ragas related. If you, for instance, work a little bit on the tuning, and that would be one contribution I could offer, and say, hey, then let's work on a larger wind chime, or let's work on one of those spinners, or let's work on a lithophone, out of stones, some instruments which basically helps to ground your tuning together. Because what brought you together to work on this project, no? If it's there's a call, there's an inner calling also, what you brought together. How can you bring that calling into that environment, your aspiration? How can you bring it, anchor it in environment so that the environment vibrates with it and radiates that energy? Yeah. So I don't know if Kavit, if that makes meaning what I'm saying, and then I can take a look and what would be a form, how to say, where we could manifest the core sound of it. And out of that, I would trust it. If that's a good tuning, then all the other things would evolve from it, because it would churn the inspiration and ideas and how to say, analogies and all of that.
As I visualize the sunrise, and sunrise perfectly resonates with Bhairav. That's my favorite raga too. But it's more, if you say from male-female perspective, it's a male raga. Bhairavi is more the female version of it, a little later morning. But Bhairav is what I feel, sunrise and elevation and start of the day resonates with.
But then you would have to check, is that also resonating with Bindu and Alka? Now that's your association. And when they listen to this one, is this your shared tune? That's what I'm teasing, because at that time I don't know who is in your core, but I think part of the listening, what Vladimir always reminded me, part of the listening faculty, the deeper we listen, the more our collective communal faculties are vacant, the sociological aspect. And I said, is there a coherence? There has to be. You wouldn't be so enthusiastic and work on this project together, no? So you would have to test with the others, is it for them, is Bhairav the same thing? Is everybody relating to Shiva in the same way?
We actually, another thing that binds us together is the cause, the revolution in education that we want to bring together. We all are one on that, because we have seen that we are doing all sorts of things, all strategies and games and a lot of stuff we have already done with senses, but not in this manner, that is why we're calling it inner calling. So we have always seen that in whatever we have done earlier, the soul is missing, as Bindu has always said. Now we don't want that soul to go missing now. We want that our their faculties are enhanced so much that later on, whatever cognitive knowledge, education, science, maths, everything eventually will happen, because that's what is needed. But then that will be perceived and learned and imbibed in the right way, right form, to give the desired results to the society. And social entrepreneurs, as we call them, we should be able to build them to that level. So somewhere that we are all aligned to that thought. I don't really know about music uh, because that I think Bindu and Alka can talk about that.
So I think,
But
I mean,
our vision is same.
I think we really need to sit, the three of us, at one of our meetings, and maybe others also can join. To maybe, Kavita, you could pick some things, and then we could say, yes, this is my song or whatever. So let's do that exercise, I think, because I don't know ragas. I like the idea of music which feels like sunshine. I would love music which feels like cool breeze. That's my idea. I don't know which raga at what time. I cannot identify them by name, but I know what I like. So
I would like to add something that I think once Vladimir had told us a beautiful story about this person in South Africa where, they all meet. I don't know whether it was Farid or Vladimir who told us a story about,
Senegal.
they had an issue. Yeah. So if they had an issue, they would all just sit in silence and, eventually after some time, they would come up with a solution and they would just go away. So because we've all worked with each other for so many years, I think there is a frequency.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really require sometimes even words to express or, some kind. So if I'm thinking of an idea, I know that Kavita will resonate with it, or Alka will resonate with it, or, Karna would turn around and say, yeah, I think it's a great idea and we can add 5 more things to it. So, and if Kavita comes up with the music and, we're listening to it sometimes and we say, oh, this sounds so good for us. So we have no idea, Alka's right. We don't know the ragas, we don't understand it, but we resonate with it very well. So for me, sometimes just the silence of listening to what the other is trying to convey resonates beautifully as a team. And I think it's also because of all of us have worked so long that we are in that frequency and in that tune. And that is why a common thing has binded all of us together. We see what we missed in our own life. We know that what we really want now at the twilight of our careers or in our life in terms of, I think that doesn't need to be expressed through anything, but just that feeling, that bond, that silence that conveys to me. I don't know if I was making sense, but that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, and I tried to translate it into an actual musical scale, and I had some idea because there's also a pentatonic form of this morning raga of Bhairav, which is called Bhairagi. And I thought because pentatonic scales, I don't know, they have more coherence, or they're more primal. They're more, how to say, they touch us on deeper levels in that way. They are more from a primal evolutionary stage of human evolution. Anyway, this was just my impulse because I think I'm a pragmatic manifester as deeply as I am a dreamer in one way. And when I heard this voice, so, but what's the next step? Then you call out to me. And I said, okay, let's make it real. I trusted, think that with Vladimir's beautiful, vast background and his capacity of tuning in any sophisticated and psychic conversation, and Farid there with his designer and organizational skills and his deep listening, that kind of like, how to say that, yeah, we were dreaming, we were exploring, for the shared space now. And I'm all for it, of taking one step. That's my urge then, because I need to see a result from from the shared time and all of that. Of course, there's a beautiful result of getting to know each other. But that's why I'm saying I'm seeing this space, and while we were speaking, I was looking at the renderings again and again, just to be in that space. I tried to imagine us in the space and things and what's needed. And I see at this moment I have this image. We just need to, I don't know, it would be nice maybe if you can share, not now, but after, through WhatsApp or something, some current pictures, how far the construction is and how often in construction, the magic of the land goes a bit in the background, with all the materials and all of that. But I would say, we are doing a tuning here. We are tuning together into the desperation of a new impetus and because now you spoke about soul, you've been in all these professional careers and you're longing for that inner core. And I said, yes, we are speaking about how can we bring the psychic back into the center of our education, no? And and music is a beautiful means of doing that, it's our intuitive connection to the psychic. When we say music is food for the soul, yeah. We also in this last seminar we found out sound is nourishment for the brain and nervous system. Consciously gathered sounds and used sounds, it nourishes our brain. I'm in a present study again on the Tomatis work, which goes back to the, ontogenetically, how important the development of hearing and ear is. Of course, for me, it's central in my life, so I'm always like to hear that, what a central position it takes in our growth. And I'm ready to explore, but then I need as I said, I was teasing you with a homework and says, let's say I have a proposal, if Kavita, you can look at it. I mean, it's still, usually, why it is by Raga, it's actually Raga in which Samaveda was sung partly. It comes from Bhairav, but it's more light, it's not as heavy. And it's grave and the full Shiva, it has, in Bhairagi is the whole gamut of the Trishruti, of the Vedic tuning, the half note up and down, it's involved. If Kavita, look into it, yeah, Bhairagi, an Audav scale, yeah, and
Yes.
it's for the children, it's a bit serious and all of that because it has a minor second there and stuff, but maybe in the process of gestation that it would be appropriate. And then we, as I said, I'm at this moment, I say, let's plant the seed sound. Let's plant the seed sound and maybe work together, but that either that somebody is visiting here or something like this, let's look for that bell sound, because if we have a seed sound, all the other things will emerge. And I give you that image in a Balinese orchestra, they create the mother gong, yeah? They create one, and that's a huge ritual, and all the gods and all the beings have to be invoked. And once this gong is made, the whole orchestra is made out of the harmonics and of the tones of that gong. So I have this image now and says, let's find this core tuning of the place, which helps us to come into listening awareness. And then out of this one, I would trust that all the other elements would evolve. And that's what I can contribute at this moment. Yeah, the seed sound, let's call it this way, or dig for that wellspring of the sound, and out of this one, the inspiration will come, what you want to have in the rooms, what we want to have in this and that corner. Because I'm saying I don't want to create it myself and put that work also because I'm very full. I said, let's co-create it.
Yes, beautiful. I like the idea of that.
I think, so I was going to suggest this, and I suggested it to you guys last week, but I think if possible, it would be wonderful for the three of you to go to Oroville and almost like a sonic Ricky, because then Aurelio, you can work with them on on this sonic alignment around their own
Yeah.
tuning or on their own sound. But more than that, you can take them to some of these spaces because we can talk about it at a very cognitive level, but until you step into some of those spaces and feel the change, or you understand really what resonance of a room is, and then to hear some of the instruments, to experience some of the instruments, to go into the garden, I think that just takes the lid off of it, and
Yeah.
it advances the understanding on so many levels, and it goes right into what Vladimir is talking about. You actually start to understand it with the different faculties. It's not you've seen it, you're hearing it, you're smelling it, you're tasting it, you are experiencing it in a way that I don't think we can do. We can only do so far onto Zoom, and then perhaps if we can get the timing right, then Vladimir and I can join for parts of that from the US. But I think the four of you together, or if it's not possible, at least Bindu and Aurelio, to experience some of that together it would change this very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I
Yes.
mean, what I can also offer in case of all three of you are on the land, that we can connect through a WhatsApp or something. Okay, that's very limited sound-wise. Just on the land at the sunrise or then evening time, once you have the time out there, that's also possible. And that we do a little bit of listening. I still have a sound with, I don't know what's the timing and stuff, but I have some instruments somebody brought me from Vietnam, and I can whenever we're around, I can share that. But would like to hear maybe Vladimir also what he says, and for you of bringing that together. This meeting, as you said, it was again and trying to tune in into that listening faculty.
Yeah,
Yes, sorry, Vladimir, you go ahead. Yeah.
no, please go ahead.
I was just saying that he did mention that he has a project in Greater Noida. So I was wondering if you ever come this side, that it would be great if you could see the place yourself. It's on the way to Greater Noida.
Yeah. As I said, there's a research project going on there. I have been there. But for instance, with my scope, I have a project north of Delhi in a university, Rishihut University. And I'm happy I have a young sound engineer, musician, composer student there. And I sent him to the site visits. Yeah, I mean, that's also a possibility. If Dhruv is in the area, he can, lovely, his wife is a psychologist and sound worker and yoga teacher and all of that. We can see that one, but if you don't manage to come down, of course, that would be if one of you, needs a bit of an out time in the south and Pondicherry, that is always welcome, yeah. But I can arrange that for Dhruv also at this moment, for the two of them. Very sensitive young people. Yeah.
Great. I think we'll discuss this with the team and get back on this.
Okay.
On our trip. Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I have
Aurelio.
one more
Yeah,
question.
okay.
Again, I get into logic and what next always. So we are in the process of now making the website for the school, documenting the philosophy and how what are the elements of our curriculum that we want to now talk about. How do we document it? Do we put it up on the website somewhere? How do we talk about this now? Is it too early to think about that, or should we begin right now to put the elements on in writing also?
Yeah. I think it is time to do it, and What I wanted to say, actually, to address your issue, Alka, basically, because I see that there are several kind of frequencies, as it were, yeah? Or several activations of different faculties at the same time. So what Aurelia was addressing, do we have the carrier, the basic carrier of all of these vibrations? That is the common ground, the common foundation which would allow us harmoniously to unfold. And this is a profound question, yeah? So it doesn't mean that we have to surrender our needs for activation of all the faculties. No. We need to be carried properly, to be dynamically in rhythmical sense, unfold all of the needs of all the faculties like rhythm, like dynamic truth. All of them are needed, and the curriculum is needed, and the forms and shapes and mind and mathematics, everything is needed. But how to make it most effective, most integral in a way that it would allow simultaneously, not in a deficient way, but in an efficient way to support all the development of faculties. So that carrier, that sound, that unison or is needed. Yeah? We have to find that one melody which will carry rhythm, form, shape, expressions, self-expressions. It has to allow this to happen in the most respectful, and that's why this idea of holding this space. Can we hold this space? Yeah? In all unfoldment, in all possible needs of expression, we need, first of all, to establish something. And today we did something very interesting, experientially. It is here, this space. I can feel it. It's deep. It is pervading everyone. Everybody feels comfortable, though we are over 2 hours sitting here. This is something. It's an achievement of some kind.
Yes.
And I think I also want to confirm with Alka, you know, I think we're working on an integral paradigm and an integral way. What Vladimir just said, all the faculties have to be there, even if we focus on some seemingly exclusively, but that makes a strong team, that you hold that focus and that you said, hey, what does it mean pragmatically? Can I now move on and putting it into concept and all of that? And I think that's when that core resonance of the team is there, then the team is like an organism in itself, which kind of like enhances each other, and where each one carries a different function, and we have to trust that, no? And that's why I also, that was my interest to say, in one way your project is, the project itself is like a being or a beingness, no? It holds a certain quality, and the more we are in touch with that quality, how to say, the more we can offer the space for its unfolding. So there's also, in one way, there's this trust there. There's a deep faith there. When I see your engagement, it's like, wow, you're holding already such an amazing caring space, and out of that, everything will unfold. With all your different gifts and faculties. And in Auroville, we wouldn't survive if we wouldn't have all the layers there. And in Africa, you won't survive if you don't have your feet on the ground while you're dreaming the wildest dreams. On the planet, we will not have a future if we're not working from an integral approach.
Exactly.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. Sorry
I
to.
give you a sound for leaving, if that's
Yes,
okay.
please do.
It's a little, it's actually in Vietnam, the women play it. It's a mouth harp. Somebody brought it. You found it in many of the ancient cultures in many different forms.
Wow.
Very nice.
So unusual. I've never heard something like this, but it reminded me of
Very
maybe a
interesting.
chanting of the Buddhist chants. It had that same flavor of the Buddhist chant kind of a feel to me. So interesting, very interesting. Yeah.
I'm happy to see Kalpana also. Now she appeared on the screen. Good evening, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
so
Really.
much.
I've been a passive listener and enjoyed the entire conversation and the music and trying to find the rhythm in all of us. Each one of us is very different, you know. Each one of us has a different musical outcome. But I think in the end, we are forming a symphony and a harmony and creating an orchestra. So I'm looking forward to that, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really, really thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.